All right, bang, bang. Today is Tuesday. It is January 11th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports, here with Chief because it's Tuesday, obviously. Chief, how are we?
Doing better than you.
Way better than me.
I could hear it in your voice.
Way better.
You had a little pep in that bang bang, though.
I did.
More than I was anticipating.
I don't know where that came. That's like all heart.
That was like your Jordan flu game.
This bar is just...
It's killing you.
Yeah, I know. Like, literally. I'm like... Was happy to see Portnoy, but I'm happy he's gone because it's like, it's too much.
Well, and it's like, you know, we're thrilled to be opening this bar, but it's going to cost us our best guy.
Yeah, I can't go anymore. I just can't go. I can't do it.
Well, I mean, maybe you can go, but then don't
just not on Mondays?
Not on Mondays, and then maybe when the game's over. Like I left when it was clear that Georgia was winning. And then you decided to go to bars until 4 a.m. So you can't necessarily blame our bar for that.
Yeah, I guess, but like people love to blame gateway drugs, right? So our bar was the gateway drug.
Club Ed is back
to Richards in the Lodge. So
yeah,
but those are all three great places.
That's
a nice trinity right there,
and all so different.
Yeah,
they're so different.
Yeah,
I do love the Lodge.
That was my first time, dude.
Really?
Yes.
Do they have the little secret passageway bar?
They did not. That's closed because of COVID. But the bouncer was nice enough to show me. So cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Really like it's like a speakeasy back there. Yeah.
So cool.
Yep.
But yeah, it's go check out the Barstool River North Bar.
I've been there twice now. What did you go? 3 days total?
4.
You have 4?
Yes.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Wednesday too.
Oh, so then I did 3 times too. Yeah. So I was, so the Wednesday was kind of more chill.
Yeah. Very just.
But Friday, obviously, I think everybody has seen was a tough night for me, alcohol wise, responsibly, and with that picture, and then last night it's different when it's also like thanks Dave for picking up the tab, but it's different when it's somebody else's tab. You just don't even think about it. Just pour them back. Yeah. Oh, another bucket of high noons arrived. What do you know?
And the Barstool Bar is doing, and this isn't an ad. This is just like I was intrigued by it. Like the Miller Lights and high noons. Like your bucket is 10. Like it's like a wide bucket. It's like a straw basically.
Oh yeah.
Like $10.
Yeah.
Like 10 bottle.
They fit easy
buckets.
Yes.
Which is
it's a lot.
You're right. You just see it's like just keep bringing those.
Run it back. Yeah.
So
and like
nice.
we had Dave ordered the high noons. There's a big bucket, and then it might have been more than 10 in that because those cans are skinny. And then I think I had 2 or 3, maybe 4, I don't know. And then the girl just brings back another whole trough of them. It's like, well, I guess we're just running it back, and here's another case of high noons.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's great service. It's awesome. It's a good spot. You should check it out. You know what else is a good service?
What's that?
yourfuzzy.com/dog.
I needed to use it today.
Yeah, what happened? So the podcast, this is people, if you're listening, the podcast is a little late coming out today. Has nothing to do with me staying out till 4 and more to do with this.
My dog, George.
Okay.
George is under the weather. I don't know. It's like that old Seinfeld episode where the dog has like a wheezing cough. He's had it for like 3 days. And I thought because he just always has done this where he sees like the snow and ice and he just like, he has to eat it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, dude, like that is covered with dirt and oil and salt. And I was thinking like, man, he just got a big chunk of it because I saw him do it and had all the salt on. I'm like, that's going to be fucking gross. I tried to get away, couldn't.
Yeah.
And then he's been like coughing, hacking, for 3 days. So I finally needed to use Fuzzy to kind of get to the bottom of it. And I looked, through the, use the system and use the app, and then was like, made the decision to take him to the vet. So needed Fuzzy.
Yeah, yourfuzzy.com/dog. It's a telehealth service for pet parents that offers 24/7 access to personalized pet care from veterinarian professionals. It's one of those things, like you said, like you never want to know when you want to go in and when. So It's great to have that 24/7 to be able to talk to someone.
And like no one knows anything, and dogs can't talk. They can't tell you what's going on with them. So I think everybody who has that dog has had that fear of, well, is it worth going into the vet right now? Do I really need to do that? Because I've done that thing where I've seen like my dog is like limping a little bit, like, better take him in. And then you pick him up and he's like totally fine. Mm-hmm. And they're like, that'll be $450. So it's way better to have like that layer of Fuzzy to like get good, advice and care. And then if you need to take it to the next level, you can make an informed decision.
Yeah, because they're there for you from everyday questions to middle of the night emergencies. Fuzzy is the answers pet parents need through live chat and virtual vet consultations available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Fuzzy can answer your pet questions, big and small, urgent and every day. Fuzzy can also recommend the exact right products for your pet, all of which are handpicked by their established team of veterinarian professionals and available at discounts exclusive to Fuzzy members. From getting your pet's diet just right to meeting their middle of the night needs to finally figure out what makes their breath smell that way, nothing is too big or small for a quick Fuzzy call. Right now, Fuzzy is offering our listeners a free 7-day trial membership. Go to yourfuzzy, your.com/dog to sign up today. Once again, that's a free 7-day trial at yourfuzzy.com/dog. And for a limited time, Fuzzy is offering a special discount of $20 off any of your pet's products needs, pet meds, supplements, food, and more with promo code DOG.
What percent off?
It's giving you $20 off.
Oh, $20. Wow.
Yes. So a lot of good stuff there. Promo code DOG, like I said. Once again, that's Fuzzy, yourfuzzy.com/dog for your free trial of Fuzzy with access to 24/7 personalized pet care and vet recommended products.
You read that ad like it was a poem.
Thank you.
At one point, just rolled
Fuzzy
right.
makes it easy for me. Big Fuzzy guy.
Yep.
Yourfuzzy.com/dog. All right, Chief. What's on the docket for today?
Well, we're talking Kazakhstan, of course. And it's like, I've had a few people reach out, and I got intrigued because I saw these crazy videos going around on Twitter over the weekend where you would just see these people like on horseback, like protesters, like, I don't know, probably 10, 12 people, like formed a cavalry division of their protest army and were like going at police and the government forces on horseback. It's like, wait a second, like, what year is this? What am I watching? What's going on? And it's from a part of the world that I've always found like kind of intriguing.
Oh, dude, I'm so intrigued. For the record.
Oh, are you?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, continue.
No, because it's just like you never hear anything come out of there. It's
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is going on?
It's I watched this. We talked about this.
It's a travel show, right?
Yeah, it's that dark tourist show, and it was like Turkmenistan.
Yeah,
that place is crazy.
And this is like the neighbors of them.
Yes,
and it seems like, they used to call Africa like the dark continent, and it had nothing to do necessarily with skin tone. It was just like it was hard to get news in and out of there, like because it was so like maybe underdeveloped. I really feel like this part of the world, like this, far Eastern Europe, sub-Asia area, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, all these stands that used to be part of the Soviet Union. It's just like no one even knows like where they are on the map. No one knows anything about them. And you're right, like that dark tourist show like gave you a little window into what Turkmenistan was like. Yeah. And when you read about Kazakhstan, there's some parallels there. And same thing when we were talking about a couple weeks ago, not Belarus, the other one over there, or was it Belarus?
We talked about.
I think it was
Belarus.
Yeah, right. And it's just like they're like we're breaking off from the Soviet Union. We're going to be our own thing, but we're going to run everything exactly like how the Soviet Union did. Like they've all had one dictator. Lukashenko was the Belarus guy. He's been there since the formation of the country. Kazakhstan is very similar. And same thing with Turkmenistan. I think Turkmenistan has had 2 leaders, and now Kazakhstan has had 2, but it's like a puppet of the other one. Fuck, Russia's really only had 2. So like all these like former Soviet states where there was all this hope after the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union collapsed that democracy would like Western democracy would like take root and take hold in these places that had been only dictators or before that were part of the Russian Empire or the Ottoman Empire, like these other parts of the world where they just never really had freedom. They've reverted back to the only thing they've ever known, which is one power player and one dictator. The government rules all, and that's the way it is. And it's now it's like the people are like enough. and you're seeing like this kind of uprising and revolution, and you just never know how these things start. And that's why I was going to say, like, I feel like, you're intrigued, but a lot of people might be like, why the fuck should I care about Kazakhstan?
Totally.
Totally.
And that's where like we get into with the show, and I know people are great like visual learners, and
Yep.
I like seriously. It's on Netflix. It's called Dark Tourist. It's a 15-minute episode, and the whole series is pretty well done.
Yeah, very good.
But
they go
the
to
Kazakhstan one was the Turkmenistan.
Turkmenistan, yeah.
Was I mean it's a city that's like world class, like built, like beautiful,
right? But
there's like nobody who lives there. It's crazy. It's so weird.
And so weird. Well, that one in particular, they had like the cult of it's like cult of personality. Like he wrote his own like Bible basically.
Yes.
And it's like you have to read this basically autobiography Bible type of book and like take a test on it in order to get a driver's license. It's like it's crazy, it's bananas, and it's like that's just how it is in that part of the world. And Kazakhstan has been known as a place that's been relatively stable. But they're a very like closed society, just like Turkmenistan. Like there's 180 countries in the world, I think right now is the number. And in terms of like freedom of the press and individual liberties and things like that, they're allowed. Kazakhstan ranks 155th, so I feel like if you're not, it's like, I don't know how exactly they do those ratings, but you don't want to be 155th. I'm guessing, and it's like I'm sure they could easily be 180th depending on the year, but that's the way it is there. But like the reason I always am fascinated by these kind of far off places are really two reasons, where you never know what is going to trigger some international crisis, revolution, and like historically you look back where like World War I, like Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo, like who would have thought that some fucking guy in a remote part of Europe is going to get assassinated, and that's going to cause like the bloodiest 4-year war between France, England, and Germany. Like it just never, so you just never know, and that might have been a unique circumstance. But then you look at like the Arab Spring in 2010. That was a thing that went from Morocco all the way across. Like they had, protests in Iran. So the whole Arab world, the governments were toppled. It started with a guy in Tunisia lighting himself on fire at like a fruit stand. And that was like, it woke all these millions of people up. And it's like next thing, so a guy lights himself on fire in Tunisia, the Tunisian government collapses, Egypt's collapse, Libya, we get rid of Gaddafi, Syria goes into chaos, and it's just like you just never know. So it's like, and who knows like how far things like that can spread and what the reaction of other countries will be. So it's always like watching a game of Risk or whatever. You just like, you never know what the flashpoint's going to be, and it's like you look at this, who knows? That's a flashpoint. And the second prong of that, at least in my brain, is like these people are going through this and they're human beings, and so are you.
Shit's so wild like that, man.
Yeah.
Like the chain reaction and how it starts.
Yes. And that's like the Strauss-Howe thing is still in my brain too. Like you just don't know. You don't know. And if they're capable of it, so are you and I. And you just like, there's that book, I've talked about it on here before, called Ordinary Men. And it's these group of older German police officers that are sent to Poland to like kind of keep quote unquote keep the peace, but just keep the Polish people kind of oppressed and in line. But they were not like indoctrinated by Hitler. Like they weren't like the Hitler youth people. Like they were like World War I veterans. They've been there in their 50s. They got their own children. Yeah, and they go there as ordinary men, and they leave as monsters, because it's like you just go like an inch too far and an inch too far, and you start off like keeping people in their houses, and then by the end of their occupation in Poland, this group of ordinary men had people that were like bayoneting pregnant women in the belly in the middle of the street. Wow. So like, and it's like those people are human beings, and it's like if you let yourself get to a dark place, it's like you just never know. So it's like I'm always just fascinated by how humans react to these crazy situations, and Kazakhstan has certainly become a crazy situation.
Yeah, it really has, and I don't know, man. It's just a wild part of the.
It's a wild part of the world, and it's like the same sort of thing where it's like this protest. Like you don't know how people are going to react. You don't know what the flashpoint's going to be. All of this started about a gas price. The whole crisis started because of gas price. So Kazakhstan used to have this law in order that would cap gas prices, and they're using a liquefied type of natural gas because it's cheaper than gasoline or crude oil or diesel. So they have like their own special type of gasoline, and they always kept the prices sort of artificially low. And then they removed this cap, so then they allowed like international speculators and whatever. So on January 1st, the price of this gasoline doubled overnight. So it went from like, I think they said it was like around 80, it went from around 12 cents a gallon to 80 cents a gallon to $1.50, like that, like over a course of 6 months. And then when that gas cap thing, that price cap thing was removed, it doubled. So the people are like, what the fuck? Especially in this one like western part of Kazakhstan, because that's a desert. So they have to import all their food. So now not only are their gas prices going up for heating, transportation, whatever, everything is in a chain reaction. So if you're shipping in your food, well, your food's going to be more expensive because it costs more to get it there. So they have to, who's ever supplying you with lettuce, if it, they normally sell you lettuce for 5 cents, but now their cost to get you it goes double. Well, they're going to double the price of that lettuce. So now it's like these people who are already kind of poor, and they're looking at their government being like, what the fuck are you doing? Because Kazakhstan, very oil rich country. So that's something I didn't know either, but they have one of the largest oil fields in the world outside of the Middle East, and they have reserves of 30 billion barrels. And yet they have gas shortages all the time.
I was going to say, just based on where they're located, proximity-wise, it would make no sense that they didn't have anything.
The only reason they're using this liquefied gas is because they can't, or this liquefied, natural gas, is because they can't get gasoline, even though they have so much, like right underneath their feet. And it's like the government is just like, well, just sell it. They sell it to their neighbors. They let their own people suffer, and they sell it to the neighbors because they're like, what the fuck, we don't care. And they get their own pocket. The government officials get their pockets lined, and then whoever owns the oil fields get their pockets lined. And guy on Main Street of whatever town in Kazakhstan is just fucked. So they use these alternate sources, and then like, hey, let's jack the price of this alternate source. And this has been like, it's been a relatively stable country for a long time. They had protests in 2019, which caused the only dictator they had ever had to like sort of resign. They took president out of his title, but they have another legal term over there, I guess, called the leader of the nation. And while you have that title, you can't be prosecuted for anything. So like you can do whatever the fuck you want. So he's not like technically in power as the president, but he's still the leader of the nation, and he like runs the Security Council. He runs the he's basically like chairman of the board. Like if you're watching the show Succession, like he's the old man, and you might have these guys like technically in the top dog seat, but they're really he's the Logan Roy guy really pulling all the strings from behind. So
the patsies.
Right, exactly. So he's still this guy that's in charge, and they have kind of like a puppet president. And that's like how now the people are like, just enough. So they had started these protests in the West about the gas prices, and then it spread across the entire country. And it's like everybody was fed up. And so you have like in the far east part of the country is where the major city, it's this city is right on the border of like Turkmenistan, but it's right down there. And so that city is like thousands of miles away. They had shut off the internet. So it's like people were just like seeming like stewing, like waiting for something to happen. And this was the spark. And then it spread like wildfire throughout the entire country. And the country is huge. I don't think.
Oh, dude, I'm looking at it right now.
Dude,
it's fucking massive.
And
like you look at these, like I always thought, like all right, like Germany was like kind of big, and like Poland was. This is like, I mean, it's not Russia, obviously, but
it's all of Europe.
It's
basically,
huge.
It's basically the size. Like if you went and just laid it over a map of Europe, it would go from like Spain all the way to Poland. Like it's the size of the European continent. It's a huge country.
Yeah.
So the fact that you had all different types of people. So you have like the more, I don't know what bougie in Kazakhstan looks like, but the bougier people in this city in the east with the people who are protesting the gas hike in the west, they're 2,000 miles apart at least, and without like great forms of communication. And then every city across the whole country is just like literally kind of gone up in flames with these protests, like thousands and thousands of people marching, hundreds of thousands of people marching in these different places. And the police reacted and the state reacted so violently right away. They came, so you have the price hike on January 1st, protests, like organized protests everywhere by January 2nd and 3rd. On the 4th, the police respond with rubber bullets and like the concussion bomb, like those grenades, concussion grenades, tear gas, and that didn't stop them. That only like strengthened the protesters. So then now it's like you get into the time where I was talking about with the people on horseback, and they're like charging the police lines, and they stormed the mayor's office. They lit another government building on fire. So the president, the sitting president, gives out a shoot to kill order to like the police. So then the police are like, so you had like 19 police were hurt. You had 12 protesters killed, but then you had a lot of the police being like, hey, you know what? This is fucked. And they were switching sides.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, so they were like working for the state. Now we're with the protesters, which you definitely saw that in Syria too, where like you never knew who was on what side. And it got so out of control that the president of Kazakhstan, guess what he did? Called his old buddy Putin. Said, why don't you send us some troops to keep the peace here? And that has been like a move that Russia has done in that part of the world several times. Like they've done it with Ukraine. They say, we're sending peacekeeping troops. Like, they're not peacekeeping troops. Like, that's a bunch of bullshit. So so they have this thing just like completely unraveling, and the presence of the Russian troops has kind of like quelled the protests in these major areas, but there's no like real resolution to this issue in sight. Like the people are, it moved from like an economic protest to a fervent anti-government protest. They have statues of these, their presidents, taking them like it's Saddam Hussein in Iraq, just ripping them like these giant 20-foot statues, getting chains, getting ropes, 40 people pull it, knock it over. So they're just knocking over these statues. They're lighting the flag on fire. Side note, beautiful flag. Kazakhstan, really? Awesome flag. One of my, like, if I had to say a favorite from that part of the world, I think it might be Kazakhstan.
Really?
Yeah, it's like this light blue.
I'm going to look this up, make sure I remember for the does it next time too.
Yeah,
Oh, it is a nice flag.
Yeah. So it's blue. I don't know. They got some kind of like light blue, some kind of design with wings and the sun.
Like almost should be like a kombucha label or something.
Yes. Yes. Like an Arizona. It looks like it belongs on Arizona iced tea.
Yeah, like a very zen.
Yeah.
Type
they got an eagle, a sun.
Yeah.
Some weird design off to the left here, but a nice flag. A nice flag. Creative. You don't see flags like that.
No.
So credit to Kazakhstan. Their flag, their own Betsy Ross. Great flag. And, but yeah, it's a situation that's out of control, and it's one of those ones that, like, we have so many things going on in the world right now. It's hard to pay attention to everything.
Yeah. And
I think that's like, like we were talking before, like we try to think of this as like the Wikipedia podcast, or like it's too long, didn't read, but like I saw a little news clip, and it's like same with me. I saw a 30-second clip of these guys on horses. Yeah. It's like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, we've never tried to hide from that. I see people try to like use it as a dig. It's like, no, like
I don't know anything.
No, we like literally sell that as like, I think our sales sells that as our thing, like pitch.
Yeah,
like that's the thing. It's like, hey, you come here, you get a little bit of everything. You get a little draft, you get a little true crime, you get a little tinfoil, talk some doc shit. Like that's the point. Like, so other people don't have to go out of their way to.
We're bringing it right to you, and then all you have to do is remember one fact, and it's like, oh yeah,
yes, yeah. It was to be a little bit more knowledgeable in the circle of friends, because it's helped a lot. At least me, obviously, I'm in the conversation. So
yeah, and it's like, we always revert back to the Strauss-Howe, because that one it just feels so relevant.
It does, dude.
And it's like, so you look, and maybe it's like a confirmation bias thing, But you just look at all the different craziness going on in the world and seemingly everywhere, even places like Kazakhstan, where they probably don't get the attention it would if things in, our country were like somewhat normal.
Yeah.
We'd probably hear a lot more about what's going on in Kazakhstan. Like, we don't have time for that. Just give them 20 seconds, give them a scroll at the bottom, but that's all we have time for Kazakhstan.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, let's take a quick break here. Let's talk about innovativeadd.com. Chief, what comes to mind when I say innovativeadd.com?
It's so easy to use. That's the thing, and it's like it's a legitimate medical clinic. They have them here in the city, so Illinois residents can go there. If you're having difficulty managing your ADD, this is the way to do it. If you go to innovativeadd.com, they take out all the guesswork for you. There's no hassle. It's not one of those bullshit refill only places. It's like a legit medical clinic, great service.
Yeah, and they take insurance, which is super important because they're one of the only companies that do that. Like, it's not common. So if you have insurance, that'll really help you out. And like you said, real medical clinic, not one of those online only refill services, based here in Chicago. You must be an Illinois resident to get into the action, folks. But if you need your ADHD medication refilled, there is no better way than going to innovativeadd.com to sign up and get with the program. It's a great service, so make sure you're checking them out to just find a better way to get your medication. So go do that, innovativeadd.com. Okay, let's hop back into the show. Do you know much about Mongolia?
I know a little bit of the history of Mongolia.
Because
Genghis Khan.
I don't necessarily look
Great
at maps
barbecue
all the time.
Yeah.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
They're like map-wise, they're in an interesting spot. They're sandwiched between Russia and China.
Yeah, and it's like if you look back through their history, like they were like the biggest empire in the world, Mongolia. You've heard of Genghis Khan, right?
Yes.
So Genghis Khan was Mongolian, and he made it all the way to fucking Poland. So there's you've heard of Dan Carlin before?
Yes.
He did a unbelievable podcast on Genghis Khan. So that talked about how they went all the way down into like the Middle East. They went all the way into Europe. And it was Genghis Khan and his son. And Genghis Khan and his son, this is like one of the craziest facts of all time. They raped so many people.
Yeah, I've heard this.
That it's like 1 in 7 people in Asia can link their heritage back to Genghis Khan. 1 in 7. Think of how many Asians there are.
That's absurd.
Absurd.
I didn't know it was rape.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just knew that he fucked a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he would like come into a town, rape 50 women himself personally or more, and leave. Go ransack the next village. And that's how it would go. And then it's like the Mongolians, because they were like the great horse culture of their time, kind of like the Comanches here. We should do a podcast on the Comanches. The Comanches are fucking insane.
What is that particularly?
It's a indigenous Native American tribe that ranged from like, it was mostly in Texas, but up in Oklahoma, Kansas, and that and then as far west as like New Mexico and southern Utah. But they were like a great horse culture. And they would have, you would have these reports from like the old Texas Rangers where they'd be riding full gallop on horseback. They would, without a saddle, and they would be able to somehow slide and shoot arrows underneath the horse's belly while it was running at their enemies. Like they were just like the greatest horse riders who ever lived. And they were unstoppable. So like you saw it like the Union Army, United States Army in the 1800s and before, they would have all these, conflicts with natives. They would decimate these people. And that stopped when they got to Comanches. They had no answers to the Comanches. They were great on the horse, great with bow and arrows, and they were ruthless. They would do things like there's this book called Empire of the Summer Moon. And it was about the last great Comanche chief, basically. But the beginning of the book would talk about how they would treat the other native tribes. And one of the things that they would do is that when they would go, they would like do these raids, and they were like small party raids, like 12 warriors, 15 warriors. And they would attack these people, the Apaches or whoever the Utes or whoever their rivals were. And they would slice their gut, okay, take their intestines out, handcuff them essentially with their own intestines while they're alive, and then throw them on an open fire and leave. And like let them burn and bleed out to death while they're tied up with their own intestines. That was the Comanches.
Jesus.
Now,
are they, maybe a dumb question, but are these the people who are represented in The Revenant?
The Revenant is
because that opening scene,
it's wild.
Is like one of the coolest scenes. Like, it does not. People like the shit on that movie for some reason.
I don't know. I think it's because it's the movie that Leo won it for.
Yeah, and like people think it's not his best. Of course, it's not his best, but it was pretty fucking good.
I thought it was a very good movie. Yeah. I liked it, but
that opening scene was awesome.
It was awesome. It was gruesome, awesome.
Yeah,
but I don't think those people are the Revenant. And there's a lot of. Like, I love that period of history, like the pioneers, the frontier. It's why I'm like into this show, 1883, Tim McGraw, like the prequel to Yellowstone. And it's just like, and they're going on the Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
And so I love that mountain man, Jim Bridger, like the exploration of America period that lasted like end of Civil War until like 1883. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just think that's like one of the coolest periods that doesn't get talked about a lot. So The Revenant, they kind of like were very liberal with the details.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
that's a movie.
Yeah. It's Hollywoodified.
2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, it's just like, but like that whole thing where he's like in the woods with the bear, like he was really more like in the high plains. Like there weren't trees like that. There weren't bears. It wasn't like the heavy snowfall. Like, it was just not like that historically accurate, just in terms. So I don't know if it was the Comanches, but probably not, because the Comanches were so far south, and Jim Bridger and all those people were more north, like in the Rockies. But the Comanches were they were crazy. They were crazy. And then the thing that finally stopped them was the invention of the Colt 45, because they could shoot 3, 4, 5, 6 arrows before you could load your rifle again. And they're coming at you at full speed on a horse and shooting at you full speed on a horse. There's no answer for that. So once the revolver was invented, a 6-shooter, and the Texas Rangers went out there with a 6-shooter, that's what really allowed them to combat and defeat the Comanches. But they would still be running around Texas if no one invented the 6-shooter.
Dude, you know how skilled you have to be to shoot that many arrows that fast?
I can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
And now that I've like shot a few arrows, and we used like an old school one it wasn't like a compound with like you see the wheels on it, like the heavy duty hunter people. It was just like a bow and a string.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was like pretty good at that, but I was like standing still, aiming at a target, and not that far away. These people it was like rapid fire arrows where they could shoot multiple at a time. Like they were. Like it's like the old thing we always talk about. If you had a time machine, like it would be awesome to go back and see like them do those things.
How that was.
Yeah, because there's just nothing like it now.
And is there any ancestry still? Because
we did them dirty on that stuff.
Oh really?
Yeah, like they were we know the different names of the tribes. I know them. Like that was one of the I've always been like like a little bit. Like it's a weird thing to say, but like the sports teams, right? Like I learned about most of the tribes initially. My introduction to them was not through school; it was through watching sports. So like, what's a Ute? What's an Aztec? Well, it's Utah and San Diego State, and there are these people that live there. What's a Seminole? So there's always this push to get rid of these names, or the Fighting Sioux in North Dakota. I'm always like, yeah, I get that, but it's also like you don't want to just whitewash them from history completely. Like if you do it respectfully, like the Washington Redskins, like that was a horrible name that should have been like it's just racist. Like it's designed to like degrade a people based on the way they look. So like obviously shouldn't have that. But if you have like the Sioux or the Seminoles, as long as you don't like characterize them in a way that's offensive, I think that could actually be a positive thing as from like an education standpoint. So, but yeah, we don't know much about them because we got rid of them and wouldn't let them speak their own language. When, made them eat our shitty food, gave them corn and sugar, and like.
Oh yeah.
I looked up. I got a piece of. It was like randomly in Whole Foods. Whole Foods had these big bison steaks. This is probably back in 2019. I bought like a big one, and it was while I was reading that book about the Comanches. I'm like, I wonder how they ate. I wonder what they ate. And they were always hunting the buffalo. The Comanches tracked the buffalo too, and I was trying to look up like native recipes. You can't find them. Cannot find like what they were eating in the high plains in 1700.
Really?
And because like our country and our government just completely annihilated them. And that's one of those things about the bison, okay, where that almost went completely extinct. And we were killing it, not to just kill it for sport necessarily, but we were trying to get rid of the bison because we were trying to get rid of the Indians. Oh. So like it was like we're just going to take away their food source, and they're not going to like be traveling with it. They're not going to have like they're just like, you guys just are staying on this reservation, and you're going to eat what we tell you to eat. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, see,
it's fucked up.
Yeah, it is. It's super fucked up, and it's a delicate conversation to have. But it feels like there should be a way to do all that. Like how like the whole casino thing works, and I think what is it, Hard Rock? Someone in Florida. They get like a big percentage of something. I could be wrong. But that's what I've been under the impression of.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. Like if you use a mascot, like you're right. Like I think your idea of having a Blackhawks museum at the United Center,
good idea,
is a great idea.
Yeah. And that was one man. I always like to make that distinction. Yeah. That'd be like having the Chicago George Washingtons, or the Chicago Lincolns. Like that's what Blackhawk was. I've written about him before. Blackhawk was like William Wallace. Like he was awesome, where he got forced off his land, and like back then it was Illinois was settled, and it was turned, as a state, turned into farmland. And so they took all the native people, the Potawatomis, all these different tribes that were around, the Great Lakes in Illinois, and said, you guys go west of the Mississippi. So William Wallace, Blackhawk gathered all these guys, all these different tribes, and like unified them, and was like, we're going back, we're taking Illinois back. So they go back across the Mississippi River and start fighting against the Illinois National Guard, and they lost, but it was like a tremendous battle, and like Abraham Lincoln was in this Illinois militia fighting against Blackhawk in like 1837, and then they captured him, they bring him to DC, and the president's just like, don't ever do that again, and you can go free. And he's like, all right. And that was it. So they didn't kill him. They didn't execute him. They're just like, you tried, you failed, you couldn't beat us. So just like live out your days and don't ever do that again. And he didn't. Yeah. But it's still like a cool story. Like a huge, like what a leader to be able to like take all these people who used to hate him and hate each other and say, hey, we have a common enemy now. Let's all unify and go back across the river and see what we can take back. And tremendous bravery. Great story.
For sure. Yep. And we talked about the Revenant too. Revenant, sorry, not Revenant. Mm-hmm. I just looked up because I always like to see what fucking Scorsese and Leo are up to next. Mm-hmm. They got a movie called Killers of the Flower Moon coming out in 2022, it looks like. So yeah, this year. And it says the premise is members of the Osage tribe in the United States are murdered under mysterious circumstances in the 1920s, sparking a major FBI investigation involving J. Edgar Hoover.
I'm in.
That sounds like you'd be
in.
Do you know much about Osage?
No.
Nope. Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds right up your alley.
Yep, maybe we should look into that for the next podcast.
Yeah, I don't know when it comes out. Holy fuck, $200 million budget.
There we go.
That's not fucking. That's no joke.
You got Leo and Scorsese.
Yeah. Might be on Apple TV Plus.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get a subscription to that. It looks like
maybe, or it's on Paramount. I don't know. Paramount. No, I don't think Leo. They definitely are like those type that only do shit for.
Yeah.
I mean, I know The Irishman went to Netflix, but that's because fucking nobody would take it on.
Yeah,
it was,
right.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
And it did have a limited release.
Well, just so it could get awards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it in theaters.
Yeah. I didn't. I watched it on my parents' floor.
Yeah. Crazy stuff, though, man. Anything else?
That's all I got.
All right. Sounds good. Interesting conversations. That just, I like when these kind of spiral different ways. It's interesting. So
that was good talk.
all right, everybody. Thank you for listening. That's it for today. We'll see you all tomorrow.